Elena Vasquez walked into her kitchen and found her husband fixing the coffee maker again. Marcus knelt on the floor with tools spread around him like he was performing surgery. His dark hair fell across his forehead as he worked. "It broke again?" Elena asked, setting her research bag on the counter. Marcus looked up and smiled. That same gentle smile that made her fall in love with him 3 years ago. "Just need some attention. These old machines have personality." Elena laughed. "You say that about everything you fix." She counted on her fingers. The air recycler, the water purifier, the door locks, and now the coffee maker. Again. "They all have stories," Marcus said, turning back to the machine. "This one just wants to make good coffee. It gets frustrated when its parts wear down." She shook her head but smiled. Her husband talked about machines like they were pets. It was strange but sweet. Elena had learned to accept his odd habits over their 3 years of marriage. The kitchen window showed the rolling hills of New Geneva Colony. Purple grass moved in the wind under 2 suns. Earth was so far away it was just a story now. This place was home. Elena worked as a xenobiology researcher at the colony's science station. She studied alien plants and animals from nearby worlds. Marcus worked in infrastructure, keeping the colony's systems running. They had a quiet life together. "How was work?" Marcus asked without looking up. "Dr. Kim thinks we found something interesting in the soil samples from Kepler 442b, some kind of microorganism that shouldn't exist." Elena poured water from a pitcher. "What about you? Any exciting pipe repairs?" Marcus chuckled. The water treatment plant had some issues. Nothing serious. He made a small adjustment with his tools. The coffee maker hummed to life. "There we go. Good as new." Elena watched him clean his tools with careful precision. Everything Marcus did was precise. He never seemed to hurry, but he finished tasks faster than anyone else. She had noticed this many times but never asked about it. "Marcus," she said carefully, "how do you always know what's wrong with these machines? You never use manuals or diagnostic tools." Marcus paused for just a moment. "Experience, I guess. Machines all work the same way, deep down." It was the same answer he always gave. Elena had stopped pushing for more details. Everyone had talents they couldn't explain. That evening, they took their usual walk through the colony's main district. New Geneva housed about 50,000 people spread across several connected domes. The architecture was practical and plain, but Elena found beauty in its simplicity. "Look at that," Marcus said, pointing up at the sky. Elena followed his gaze. 3 of the system's moons were visible, hanging like pearls against the darkening sky. The sight always amazed her, but Marcus seemed to study them differently. His expression became distant and thoughtful. "What are you thinking about?" Elena asked. Marcus was quiet for several seconds. "Just wondering what's out there, beyond what we can see. More colonies, probably. Maybe other intelligent species we haven't met yet." "Yes," Marcus said softly. "Other species." They walked home in comfortable silence. Elena noticed Marcus glancing at the sky several more times, but she didn't comment. He often seemed lost in thought during their evening walks. Back in their small house, Elena prepared for bed while Marcus checked the door locks. He did this every night, testing each lock twice. Another habit she had learned to accept. "Elena," Marcus said as she brushed her teeth, "if something happened to the colony, if there was danger, would you trust me to keep you safe?" Elena paused with her toothbrush halfway to her mouth. "That's a strange question. What kind of danger?" "Any kind." "Would you trust me?" "Of course I would. We're married. I trust you with everything." She studied his reflection in the bathroom mirror. "Why are you asking?" Marcus wrapped his arms around her from behind. "No reason." I just want you to remember that I would do anything to protect you." "I know that," Elena said, leaning back against his chest. "You're the gentlest man I've ever met. Sometimes I think you wouldn't hurt a fly." Marcus's reflection smiled, but Elena caught something in his eyes. Something that didn't match the smile. "You might be surprised what people are capable of when they need to protect someone they love." Elena turned in his arms. "Are you worried about something?" "The colony's defenses are good. The Space Guard patrols this sector regularly." "You're right," Marcus said, but his voice sounded like he was trying to convince himself. "I'm probably being paranoid." That night, Elena woke to find Marcus standing at their bedroom window. He was completely still, staring out at the stars. She watched him for several minutes. He didn't move or even seem to breathe. "Marcus?" She whispered. He turned quickly, as if she had startled him. "Sorry, couldn't sleep. Come back to bed." Marcus returned to their bed and pulled Elena close. She fell asleep listening to his heartbeat, which seemed slower and stronger than normal heartbeats should be. The next morning started like any other. Marcus made coffee with the repaired machine while Elena prepared for work. The coffee tasted perfect, better than it had in weeks. "I have to work late today," Elena said. "Dr. Kim wants to run more tests on those soil samples." "I might be late too," Marcus replied. Routine maintenance on the power grid. Elena gathered her research materials and kissed Marcus goodbye. "See you tonight." As she walked to the science station, Elena felt happy and content. Their life was simple but good. Marcus was a wonderful husband, even if he had some unusual habits. Everyone had quirks. She spent the day analyzing alien microorganisms under powerful microscopes. The tiny creatures from Kepler-442b were unlike anything in Earth's databases. They seemed to exist in ways that defied several laws of physics. "Life finds a way," Dr. Kim said, looking over Elena's shoulder at the test results. "Even when it shouldn't be possible." Elena nodded, but she was thinking about Marcus and his strange questions the night before. Sometimes she wondered if there were things about her husband that shouldn't be possible too. But that was a silly thought. After all, Marcus was just a normal human man who was good at fixing things and loved to look at the stars. What could be unusual about that? That evening, as Elena walked home through the colony's quiet streets, she had no idea that everything was about to change. Above the planet's atmosphere, sensors had detected something approaching from deep space. Something that would shatter her peaceful life forever. The alarm started at dawn. Elena jolted awake to the sound of sirens wailing across the colony. Emergency lights flashed red through their bedroom windows. Marcus was already sitting up, completely alert. "Get dressed, quickly. What's happening?" Elena stumbled out of bed and grabbed clothes from the closet. "I don't know yet," Marcus said, but his voice was too calm, too controlled. "Emergency broadcast should start soon." As if on cue, the communication system activated. Director Harrison's voice filled their house through the speakers. "All residents, this is not a drill. Unknown vessels have entered our system. Military forces are responding. Remain in your homes and await further instructions." Elena's hand shook as she pulled on her shoes. "Ships? What kind of ships?" Marcus moved to the window and looked up at the sky. Even in daylight, Elena could see new stars that hadn't been there the night before. Bright points of light that moved slowly against a background of space. "Big ones," Marcus said quietly. The next announcement came an hour later. Director Harrison's voice was strained now, filled with fear. "The approaching vessels are not human. Repeat, not human. All civilians report to designated shelter areas immediately. This is a code black emergency." Elena felt ice in her stomach. Code black meant invasion. She had studied the protocols but never imagined they would be used. "We need to go," Marcus said. He grabbed their emergency bag from the closet. "Shelter Area C is closest." They joined streams of frightened colonists hurrying through the streets. Children cried while parents carried them. Elderly people struggled to keep up. Everyone moved toward the reinforced shelters built into the colony's foundation. Above them, the alien ships grew larger and more distinct. Elena counted 12 massive vessels, each one bigger than the colony's entire main dome. Their surfaces were dark metal covered in strange patterns that seemed to shift when she looked at them directly. How did they get here so fast? Someone shouted. "Where's the space guard?" "Communications are jammed," another voice replied. "We're on our own." Elena felt Marcus's hand take hers. His grip was strong and steady, but when she looked at his face, she saw something that frightened her more than the alien ships. Marcus looked angry. Not scared like everyone else, but coldly, dangerously angry. "Marcus, what is it?" "These aliens," he said in a low voice. "I know what they are. How could you possibly know that?" Before Marcus could answer, the first attack began. Beams of green light stabbed down from the ships above. Where they touched buildings, the structures simply vanished. Not destroyed or exploded, but erased as if they had never existed. Screaming filled the air. The orderly evacuation became a panicked stampede. "This way," Marcus shouted, pulling Elena toward a side street. "The main routes are too exposed." They ran down narrow passages between buildings. Marcus seemed to know exactly where to go, leading them through shortcuts Elena didn't even know existed. Behind them, more green beams fell from the sky. Entire city blocks disappeared in silence. They reached Shelter Area C, just as something massive landed in the colony's central plaza. Elena looked back and saw her first alien. The creature stood 8 feet tall and looked like a nightmare combination of insect and reptile. Its body was covered in black chitinous armor that gleamed like oil. 4 arms ended in claws that could tear through steel. Its head was elongated and cruel, with eyes like burning coals. More of them were landing throughout the colony. They moved with predatory grace, carrying weapons that hummed with energy. "HFY," Marcus whispered. "What?" "The species name. HFY. They're conquerors." Elena stared at him. "How do you know their species name?" Marcus didn't answer. His attention was focused on the largest alien, which had just stepped out of what looked like a command ship. This creature was even bigger than the others, covered in scars and decorations that suggested high rank. When it spoke, its voice carried across the entire colony with unnatural volume. "Humans of this settlement," the alien announced in accented but clear English. "I am Warlord Dexul of the Hegemony. You are now subjects of our empire. Resist and die. Submit and serve." To demonstrate his point, Warlord Dexul gestured at a group of colonists who were trying to flee. Without touching them, he lifted all 6 people into the air. They screamed and struggled against an invisible force. "Your species has no natural defenses against psychic power," Dexul continued. "You are weak, helpless, perfect slaves." With a casual wave of his hand, the alien flung the helpless humans against a building. Elena turned away, but she couldn't block out the sound. "We have to get into the shelter," Marcus said urgently. They pushed through the crowd at the shelter entrance. The heavy blast doors were designed to protect against nuclear weapons. Elena hoped they would be enough to stop aliens to dot inside. Hundreds of colonists huddled in the reinforced chamber. Emergency lighting cast eerie shadows on worried faces. Children whimpered, while adults whispered prayers. Elena found herself separated from Marcus in the chaos. The crowd pushed her toward the back of the shelter, while Marcus got caught near the entrance. "Marcus!" she called out. "I'll find you," he shouted back. "Stay safe. Remember what I said about trusting me." Those were the last words Elena heard from her husband before everything went wrong. The blast doors, built to withstand the most powerful human weapons, began to glow red hot, then white hot. The metal started to melt. "That's impossible," someone whispered. "Nothing can penetrate those doors." But the Kethver had technology beyond human understanding. The doors dissolved like ice and fire. Warlord Dexol stepped through the opening, followed by a squad of his warriors. The alien commander was even more terrifying up close. His presence seemed to fill the chamber with dread. "Greetings, cattle," Dexol said with cruel amusement. "Time to sort the useful from the worthless." Elena looked around desperately for Marcus, but he was nowhere to be seen. In the confusion of the door melting, he had vanished completely. The aliens began separating the colonists into groups. Scientists and engineers were pushed to one side, children and elderly people to another. Everyone else stood in the middle, waiting to learn their fate. "You," Dexul pointed at Elena. "You work in the science facility." "Yes?" Elena nodded, afraid to speak. "Good. Scientist of value. The rest." The alien gestured dismissively. Elena realized with growing horror that they were dividing people into the useful and the disposable. Those deemed worthless would probably be killed. She searched the crowd frantically for Marcus, but her husband was gone. Either he had escaped when the doors melted, or he was already dead. For the first time since the attack began, Elena felt truly afraid. Not just for the colony or for herself, but for the gentle man she loved who fixed coffee makers and looked at the stars with sad eyes. Wherever Marcus was, she hoped he was safe. She hoped he had found somewhere to hide from these monsters. Elena had no way of knowing that Marcus hadn't hidden from anything. That even now, he was making a choice that would change everything forever. 3 days passed in the detention facility. Elena sat on the cold metal floor with 40 other survivors, wondering if Marcus was still alive. Warlord Dexul visited them each day to demonstrate his power. He would select random prisoners and torture them with his mind, lifting them into the air or sending waves of pain through their bodies. The aliens seemed to enjoy watching humans suffer. "Your species disgusts me," Dexul announced during his morning visit. "Weak minds, fragile bodies, no natural weapons or armor. How did you even survive long enough to reach space?" Dr. Kim, who had been captured with Elena, spoke up bravely. "We survive because we work together. We help each other." Dexul laughed, a sound like grinding metal. "Cooperation? How pathetic. The strong should rule the weak. That is the natural order." To punish Dr. Kim for speaking, the alien lifted him off the ground with his mind. Dr. Kim screamed as invisible force crushed his ribs. Elena wanted to help but knew any resistance would only make things worse. She closed her eyes and tried not to listen to her friend's pain. "Humans have no psychic abilities," Dexul continued, still holding Dr. Kim in the air. "No natural defenses against superior minds. You are perfect slaves because you cannot fight back." Elena thought about Marcus and his strange habits. The way he fixed machines without manuals. How he always knew when storms were coming hours before the weather sensors detected them. The careful way he moved, like someone with perfect control over his body. Maybe those weren't just quirks after all. On the third day, Dexul's patience ran out. "I grow tired of keeping useless mouths fed," the alien announced. "Today we separate the valuable from the worthless. Scientists and engineers will be shipped to our industrial worlds. The rest will be eliminated as examples." Elena's blood turned to ice. Half the prisoners in their section had no technical skills. They would be murdered simply because aliens found them inconvenient. "Please," Elena said, standing up. "These people have families. They have lives worth living. Daxul turned his burning gaze on her. Lives worth living? According to who? Your weak species has no right to judge value. The alien gestured, and Elena felt invisible hands grab her throat. She couldn't breathe or speak as Daxul lifted her into the air. Perhaps I should start the elimination with you, Daxul said thoughtfully. A demonstration of what happens to those who question the hegemony. Elena struggled against the psychic grip, but it was like fighting gravity itself. Black spots appeared at the edges of her vision as her oxygen ran out. Then the blast doors exploded, not melted like before, but completely destroyed. Chunks of twisted metal flew across the chamber like deadly missiles. The Kethver guards raised energy shields to protect themselves, but the metal pieces curved around their defenses as if guided by intelligence. Through the smoking wreckage walked a figure Elena recognized and didn't recognize at the same time. It was Marcus. But not the Marcus she knew. This version of her husband moved with fluid grace that seemed to bend the laws of physics. His eyes glowed with soft white light that made her think of distant stars. The air around him shimmered and sparked as if reality itself was struggling to contain his presence. Most shocking of all, Warlord Daxul took one look at Marcus and dropped to the ground in terror. The alien who had been torturing humans for 3 days was now pressed against the floor, trembling like a frightened child. Words poured from his mouth in his native language, too fast for the translation devices to follow. No, Daxul finally managed in English. Impossible. The ancient enemy, the devourer. You are extinct, dead, gone forever. Marcus spoke, and his voice carried harmonics that made Elena's bones vibrate. I am not extinct, Daxul of the Kethver. Merely tired. The alien equipment in the chamber began to malfunction. Energy weapons sparked and died. Communication systems screamed electronic pain before falling silent. Even the translation devices failed, producing only static. You know what I am, Marcus continued, walking slowly toward the cowering alien commander. Your ancestors remembered, even if your generation has forgotten the lessons. Elena stared in shock as her gentle husband approached the creature that had been terrorizing them. The man who fixed coffee makers and worried about hurting flies radiated power that made the air itself tremble. Please, Daxul begged. I did not know. We thought your kind was myth, legend. We would never have come here if we had known. But you did come here, Marcus said softly. You attacked innocent people. You tortured them. You planned to murder them. Elena realized she was free from the psychic grip. She fell to her knees, gasping for air, but her attention remained fixed on the impossible scene before her. What are you? She whispered. Marcus glanced at her, and for a moment his expression softened. She saw the man she had married, the one who made her coffee and held her during thunderstorms. I am something that should have stayed hidden, he said sadly. Something that hoped to find peace by pretending to be human. Daxul tried to crawl away, but Marcus gestured casually. The alien found himself frozen in place, unable to move anything except his eyes. Your people call my kind the first ones, Marcus explained to Elena. We ruled this galaxy long before any current species achieved spaceflight. Before the Kethver learned to use psychic powers. Before humans discovered fire. That's impossible, Dr. Kim said weakly. If your people were that advanced, where are they now? Gone, Marcus replied. We chose exile when we realized that absolute power corrupts absolutely. My people became monsters who saw all other life as inferior. So the wise among us left this galaxy to find peace elsewhere. But you stayed, Elena said. A few of us stayed to watch over the younger races. To guide them if they showed promise. To protect them if necessary. Marcus looked at the trembling Kethver commander. It appears protection has become necessary. Daxul's voice was barely a whisper. The hegemony has 14 star systems. thousands of ships, billions of warriors. And I am just one being who wanted to live quietly with his wife, Marcus said. But you have forced my hand. Elena watched as her husband's form began to change. Not physically, but something deeper. The man she knew was still there, but now she could see the ancient power that lived beneath his human disguise. The creature she had fallen in love with was no ordinary being pretending to be human. He was something far older and more powerful than she had ever imagined, and he was angry. Choose carefully, warlord, Marcus said to the terrified alien. Release these people and leave this system. Never return. Spread the word that this world is under the protection of the first ones. And if I refuse? Dexul managed to ask. Marcus smiled, but there was nothing human in that expression. Then you will discover why your ancestors told stories about us in the dark. Dexul's answer came in the form of desperate defiance. I cannot retreat, the alien commander gasped from where he lay frozen on the floor. The hegemony would execute me for cowardice. Better to die fighting the ancient enemy than live as a failure. Marcus closed his eyes, and Elena saw infinite sadness cross his face. I had hoped you would choose wisdom. My warriors will avenge me, Dexul snarled, finding courage in his decision to die. The hegemony has weapons you have not seen. We will burn this world and everyone on it. No, Marcus said quietly. You will not. What happened next wasn't a battle. It was a demonstration of power so absolute that Elena struggled to understand what she was seeing. Marcus didn't move from where he stood, but every piece of alien technology in the detention facility began to scream. Not with sound, but with harmonics that bypassed the ears and spoke directly to the mind. Energy weapons overloaded and melted into puddles of superheated metal. Communication devices exploded in showers of sparks. Dexul's psychic abilities, which had seemed so terrifying before, turned against him. The alien writhed on the ground as his own mind became a prison he couldn't escape. Stop, Dexul begged. Please stop. But Marcus was no longer looking at the alien commander. His glowing eyes were focused on something far beyond the walls of the detention facility. On the ships hanging in space above New Geneva, Elena felt a change in the air pressure, like the moment before lightning strikes. Every human in the chamber experienced the same sensation, hair standing on end, skin tingling with electricity that wasn't quite electricity. Through the facility's broken windows, they could see the Kethver ships beginning to behave strangely. The massive vessels that had seemed so menacing now twisted and writhed like living things in pain. Their hulls cracked along lines that formed geometric patterns too complex for human eyes to follow. You're destroying them, Elena whispered. I'm not destroying anything, Marcus replied, his voice carrying that strange harmonic quality. I'm simply revealing what they truly are. Elena didn't understand what he meant until one of the ships broke apart completely. But instead of exploding like a damaged machine, it unfolded like an origami figure made of dark metal and living tissue. The Kethver vessels weren't just ships, she realized. They were some kind of hybrid between technology and biology, and Marcus was unmaking them at a fundamental level. How? Dr. Kim asked in amazement. Everything in this universe is connected, Marcus explained without taking his attention from the ships above. Matter, energy, space, time. The Kethver build their technology by forcing these connections into unnatural shapes. I'm simply allowing them to return to their preferred states. Another ship came apart, its pieces drifting away like flower petals in a breeze. Elena counted 12 vessels when the attack began. Now, only 7 remained functional. The surviving ships tried to flee, their engines burning at maximum power. But space itself seemed to resist their movement. They moved slowly, as if flying through thick liquid instead of vacuum. The fundamental forces don't want to obey them anymore, Marcus said. noticing Elena's confusion. Gravity, electromagnetism, the strong and weak nuclear forces. They remember older laws from before the Kethver learned to bend them. Elena watched her husband reshape reality with the casual ease of someone rearranging furniture. It was beautiful and terrifying at the same time. On the ground throughout New Geneva Colony, Kethver warriors were experiencing the same fate as their ships. Their armor fell apart like rusted metal. Their weapons became inner chunks of ordinary matter. Even their enhanced physiology began to fail as the forced evolutionary changes their species had undergone started to reverse. "You're killing them all," Elena said, though she wasn't sure if she was accusing or observing. "I'm removing their artificial advantages," Marcus corrected. "They chose to enhance themselves with technologies that violate natural law. I'm simply ending those violations." Dexul was no longer the terrifying psychic warrior who had tortured humans for 3 days. Without his artificial enhancements, he looked smaller and more fragile. His psychic powers were gone, leaving him as helpless as any ordinary creature. "Please," the alien begged. "We will leave. We will never return. Tell your people to spare those who surrender." Marcus finally looked down at the broken alien commander. "I am not my people, Dexul. I am the last of my people in this part of the galaxy. The others went away because they grew tired of making these choices." "What choices?" "Whether to save the innocent or punish the guilty. Whether to protect the weak or teach the strong. Your people force these decisions on others with your actions." Elena realized that Marcus was struggling with something deeper than just military tactics. This wasn't about defeating an invasion. It was about a being of immense power deciding how to use that power responsibly. "The humans didn't ask for my protection," Marcus continued. "They don't even know what I am. But I love them, and I love this world we've built together. So I choose to protect them." The last Kethver ship in orbit came apart like all the others. Pieces of hybrid technology and biology drifted away into space, no longer held together by force science. "It's over," Dr. Kim said in amazement, but Marcus shook his head. "This is just the beginning. Word will spread that one of the first ones has returned. Every species in the galaxy will react differently. Some will come seeking our technology. Others will flee in terror. A few will try to destroy this world before I can spread my influence." Elena felt a chill that had nothing to do with the temperature. "What does that mean for us?" "For the colony? It means everything changes," Marcus said sadly. "The quiet life we built together is over. I can hide my true nature again, but the galaxy will remember that New Geneva is where the ancient enemy revealed himself." Dexul, still lying helpless on the floor, managed one final question. "Why? Why did you hide among them? Why pretend to be human?" Marcus looked at Elena with infinite tenderness. "Because they showed me something I thought was lost forever. Hope, love, the possibility that intelligent species could grow beyond the need for conquest and domination." He knelt beside Elena and took her hands in his. They felt warm and completely normal, though she now knew they contained power enough to reshape matter itself. "I'm sorry," he said. "I never meant for you to see this side of me. I wanted to keep you safe from what I am." Elena looked into his eyes, still glowing with that soft starlight, and realized something important. Despite everything she had witnessed, despite the impossible power he had displayed, this was still the man who fixed her coffee maker and worried about hurting insects. "You're still you," she said. "You're still the man I married. Am I?" Marcus asked uncertainly. Around them, the detention facility was coming apart as alien technology continued to fail. Outside, New Geneva Colony was free, but forever changed. Above them, space was clear of invaders, but would never be truly safe again. Elena squeezed Marcus's hands and made a decision that would affect not just their marriage, but the future of humanity itself. Elena squeezed Marcus's hands tighter and looked directly into his glowing eyes. "Yes, you're still you," she said firmly. "The man who makes me coffee every morning. The man who fixes things because he can't stand to see them broken. The man who looks at the stars and worries about people he's never met." Marcus's expression was filled with doubt. "Elena, I just unmade 12 starships and left an entire invasion force helpless. How can you say I'm the same person?" "Because you could have killed them all in an instant, but you chose not to," Elena replied. "Because you're sitting here worried about whether you're still a good man instead of celebrating your victory." Around them, the other survivors were slowly standing up as they realized the danger was over. Dexul remained on the floor, no longer restrained by Marcus's power but too weak to move. The alien looked like a broken toy that had lost its batteries. Dr. Kim approached carefully. "Marcus, is it? I don't pretend to understand what just happened, but thank you. You saved all of us." Marcus stood up, helping Elena to her feet. "I may have saved you from the Kethver, but I've probably doomed you to something worse." "What do you mean?" Dr. Kim asked. "The galaxy is full of species more dangerous than the Kethver," Marcus explained. "When word spreads that one of the first ones is protecting this world, some of them will see it as a challenge. Others will see it as a threat that must be eliminated before it grows stronger." Elena felt her heart sink. "So we're not really safe at all." "Not as long as I remain here," Marcus said sadly. "My presence makes this entire system a target." Elena realized what he was suggesting. "You're thinking of leaving." Marcus nodded reluctantly. "It would be the safest thing for everyone. I could go back into exile, find some empty corner of the galaxy where I won't endanger anyone." "No," Elena said immediately. "Elena, you don't understand." "No, you don't understand," Elena interrupted. "You think the only choices are to hide or to leave. But there's a third option." Marcus looked confused. "What third option?" Elena took a deep breath and made the decision that would change everything. "Help us become worthy of the protection you can provide." "I don't follow." "You said your people left because they became monsters." "Because absolute power corrupted them, absolutely." "But what if power shared isn't absolute anymore?" Dr. Kim's eyes widened as he understood what Elena was suggesting. "You want him to teach us, to help humanity develop the abilities we need to defend ourselves." "Not just abilities," Elena said, looking at Marcus intently. "Wisdom, responsibility, the moral foundation needed to handle that kind of power without becoming monsters ourselves." Marcus stared at her in shock. "Elena, what you're suggesting, it would change your entire species. Humans would never be the same again." "Maybe that's not such a bad thing," Elena replied. "You fell in love with humanity because we showed you hope and cooperation. But you also said yourself that we're defenseless against the kind of threats that exist in this galaxy." "The Kethver invasion proves that," Dr. Kim added. "We had no defense against psychic attacks. No weapons that could penetrate their technology. We were completely helpless." Elena stepped closer to Marcus. "But we don't have to stay helpless. You could guide us. Help us develop not just the power to defend ourselves, but the wisdom to use that power correctly." "It's incredibly dangerous," Marcus warned. "Knowledge of my people's abilities could be misused. Humans could become conquerors like the Kethver, or worse. That's why we need you to teach us the right way," Elena insisted. "Not just the how, but the why. The philosophy behind responsible power." Marcus was quiet for a long time, clearly wrestling with the decision. Finally, he looked at the broken alien commander still lying on the floor. "Dexul," Marcus said, "your people have conquered dozens of worlds. Has it brought you happiness? Peace? Fulfillment?" The alien looked up weakly. "No," only endless hunger for more conquest. More power. The hegemony devours everything it touches, including itself. And why do you think that happened? Dexul considered the question carefully. Because we gain power without gaining wisdom. We learn to take but not to give. To rule but not to serve. Marcus nodded slowly. Exactly. Power without purpose becomes its own purpose. Strength without compassion becomes cruelty. Elena saw hope in Marcus's expression for the first time since the invasion began. But humans have already shown you compassion and cooperation. We have the foundation. We just need the tools. It would take generations, Marcus warned. Centuries, maybe. And there would be mistakes along the way. Humans who couldn't handle the responsibility. Others who would try to use new abilities for selfish purposes. Then we'll learn from those mistakes, Elena said. Together. You'll be there to guide us, to help us stay on the right path. Dr. Kim stepped forward. I'd volunteer to be part of any such program. I think most of the science team would. This isn't just about science, Marcus said. We'd be talking about fundamentally changing human psychology, human society, the relationship between your species and the rest of the galaxy. Elena smiled. You're already changing our relationship with the galaxy just by being here. The question is whether we face that change as helpless victims or as active participants. Marcus looked around the destroyed detention facility. Broken alien technology lay scattered across the floor. Through the windows, they could see New Geneva colony beginning to rebuild. Humans working together to repair the damage, helping their neighbors, sharing resources. They really don't know what you are, Marcus observed, watching the colonists outside. Not yet, Elena agreed. But they will eventually. And when they do, we want them to see not a terrifying alien power, but a teacher who helped them become something better than they were. Marcus made his decision. If we do this, and I mean if we do it slowly, carefully, with complete transparency about the risks. Elena felt relief flood through her. You'll stay? I'll stay. I'll teach what I can to those ready to learn it. But Elena, you need to understand that this path will change you too. Not just humanity as a species, but you personally. The woman I married will become something new. Elena considered this seriously. It was a frightening prospect, but also an exciting one. Will you still love me if I'm not quite human anymore? Marcus smiled, and for a moment, the ancient being of infinite power looked exactly like the gentle man who fixed coffee makers. I fell in love with your spirit, Elena. Your curiosity, your compassion, your willingness to see wonder in the universe. Those things don't change just because your abilities do. 1 year later, Elena stood in what had once been New Geneva's small science station. It was now the Center for Advanced Human Development, a facility that looked more like a university campus than a research lab. Marcus worked with carefully selected volunteers, teaching them to perceive the fundamental forces that connected all things. Progress was slow and sometimes difficult, but it was progress. Elena had been among the first students. She could now sense the health of living systems with a touch, understand the flows of energy that moved through all matter, and occasionally, with great concentration, make small adjustments to broken things. That it wasn't the godlike power that Marcus wielded. But it was a beginning. More importantly, every lesson came with extensive discussion of ethics, responsibility, and the proper use of power. Marcus insisted that wisdom must come before ability, always. How do you feel? Marcus asked as Elena successfully repaired a damaged microscope using only her understanding of its internal energy flows. Different, Elena admitted, but not less human. If anything, I feel more connected to everything around me. Marcus nodded approvingly. That's exactly what should happen. Power should make you more aware of your connections to others, not less. Outside their laboratory, construction crews were building additional facilities. Other human colonies had heard about New Geneva's survival and the mysterious teacher who was helping humanity develop new abilities. Volunteers arrived daily, eager to learn. Elena looked out at the stars visible through the window. Somewhere out there, other species were watching humanity's transformation with mixtures of hope, fear, and curiosity. "No regrets?" Marcus asked, following her gaze. Elena took his hand. It felt exactly the same as it had the day they met. Warm and strong and completely human. "None at all," she said. "I married a normal human, and he turned out to be something wonderful. Now he's helping us all become something wonderful too." Marcus smiled and squeezed her hand. The future is going to be very interesting. Together, they watched the stars and planned for tomorrow.